2021-22 public hearing at 6 p.m. on March 11th. Roll call. Ms. Fabiano
Here.
and Mr. Corey
Here.
and Mr. Ucolito is excused.
Yeah.
Then we have several other board members, central office, etc. Okay. Motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nikki and Ed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Just to note, Mr. Lafreniere is probably going to be late, so if he pops in, just let me know. Ms. Harrell, please. Okay. Public participation. Members of the public and staff may bring to the committee's attention information, ideas, or matters of concern related to all the duties and responsibilities of this committee. This committee will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. The time for individual remarks will be apportioned according to the number of speakers and will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker unless extended by the chair. Item 5, discussion on 2021 budget. Okay. So anybody on the line? And do we have that person that wanted to speak?
No.
Okay, all right. And we have no emails, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's move to item 5 then. Discussion budget regarding elementary special education and curriculum. Anybody have anything?
Does anybody have any questions?
I always have questions.
Go ahead.
I do not have a question.
Go ahead.
The music teachers at the elementary speech, do those fall under CEA?
All teachers
Yes.
do.
All teachers.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
all
Okay.
teachers
They're
do.
part of the union.
So
Yeah.
I noticed that there wasn't, like, it wasn't showing increases in some of them at the elementary level. Like the salaries looked the same year over year, and I expected to see an increase just based on kind of what you had mentioned was built in.
Can you give a page
Yeah, can we,
once you find it?
Remember which school?
there was a bunch of them. Sorry, I should have had it better prepared.
So music is 10. So in each school, like Vogel Wetmore music is on page 6 of 56. And there's an increase there.
I don't think it was consistent, or like speech on page 37 of 56.
37.
Yeah, at Torrington.
Did you say speech, Nikki?
I did. What page?
37.
Yeah, 37 of 56. So I wasn't sure if,
So
Speech pathologist.
yeah,
Okay.
and there was,
Keywords, I can find them for you.
I don't know, it was just. it
So
was
speech
flat the year
pathologist
before.
is 5,011.6, right? Is that what you're talking about in 37?
yes.
Yeah, so I was just questioning some of that.
The,
No, the
that
number.
there's no increase in the salary, you mean?
511.60, the account number.
But the salary's
Yeah,
the
the
same,
account number.
178.
Yeah.
178, 750.
Do we even have that? I thought
On that
those
one?
were a shortage. I thought we
At
were
Torrington.
consulting. Do we have one at that school?
Oh,
Do we have, I'm sorry?
Speech pathologist, I thought that was a shortage. do we have?
It's a shortage area. Right now, we're short because of COVID. But we don't have any vacancies.
Oh, okay. So that is a real salary.
So
No, that's a
That's-
combination.
that's
That's
more
how
than
many
one.
positions?
Two.
Because they also have,
that would be two.
okay,
Yeah.
because we have the voices program there as well.
But so to your question, Nikki, is why is there a 0% increase?
Yeah,
It's- because there's should be a 2% increase because of salary increase.
that's what I believe I heard that was built into
Or-
the budget,
If
yeah.
it's the same people.
Yeah,
Right,
if it's the
just
same people.
Yeah, I don't know that.
And they did, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So we'd have to look
Just-
into it.
Yeah.
So maybe that was the only one. I thought that there was another one. I know.
Are there, Laura, are those positions set, like, are those the same people or? you
Yeah,
don't-
yep.
Okay,
The
I
same-
thought we were gonna have a retirement. She's not retiring, so there would not be any difference.
There was a couple others, I think I saw like at, Forbes. What page? I know. Page 3 of 56, like the media specialist. I didn't know where they fell, so that was just my,
3?
yeah, page 3 of 56 is program 33.
Right.
So there's just a couple.
Yeah, so you're getting it.
I'm trying.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh.
Yeah, and for new
There's a-
positions,
that's an
Yeah, like
additional
30%,
position,
so I
right?
didn't know if it was-
is the
Well,
additional,
they're showing a salary for last year.
yeah, and no, that wouldn't include the new position because that one's
Oh,
an
okay.
ESSER. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Trying to get my funding sources correct here.
So
I'm wondering if we'll have to check it in terms of who that is and why.
Yep,
um,
totally.
In terms of possibly steps and things. Can Kim speak on that?
Yeah.
Kim?
Just a reminder that the salary increases for TEA, also, there's a different formula for teachers on max. And the speech pathologists are frequently on max. So just, it's a little bit of a different percentage when we
Next year, next year.
max salary. So it's not necessarily 2% across the board when you get to the teachers that are at the high end.
No, not for next year. Next year, I thought we said 2% across the board.
Is it across the board? I'm not sure. I'm not looking at the salary schedule. I just want to make sure if they're on max. I don't know what that looked like. So we just might want to go back and double check that.
This one is not on max.
Okay.
Um,
The speech pathologist probably is though.
yes.
Yeah, probably.
So that's the one I was referring to. So
Oh, okay, thank you. Ellen?
Could it be that some person or whatever was moved to the Alliance grant or something? I mean,
You know, we'd have to kind of pull it
Yeah.
apart
Yeah,
because
yeah.
now we're talking about individuals. So
I know,
then
I
we'll
know.
have to, so we'll get back to you.
okay.
Yeah, the same was for, the Vogel Media Library Specialist, and really what just stood out is like, it was just the same number year on year, so. I don't know the page on that.
7 of 56.
Well, we have a media specialist grade 4-5 in the ESSER money.
Right, which is
Right, which is
maybe why that's also,
Someone
you
is
know,
that's-
messing up the Forbes one. But the media specialist at Vogel is the same person. I'm wondering if that person may be a max also, but
That is,
But it's only
What
a
page
6
is that?
oh, it's at the
7?
bottom of
Eight.
7 of
8 of
56.
56.
right,
Well,
the new
I
one
don't know.
picks up that weird,
Yeah.
right, that 6
Only 6
cents.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was. And then there was just the social workers was the same scenario.
Which school?
Yeah, it was Forbes, Vogel, and Southwest.
And what position, sorry?
Social worker,
And what page is that?
10 of 56 is the first one at Vogel, or
Yeah.
the second one.
Yeah.
I wonder if those are. the max.
Possibly.
Right, yeah, that, there's a reason.
Mhm.
It just stood out.
That would be probably only one,
Yes,
I'm
Right.
guessing.
Yeah,
Vogel.
and
but-
that would also possibly be a max.
Right, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
We have another half, but it's taken out of IDEA.
right.
Yeah.
Which would not be in here because it's a general budget. But even at max, there should be an increase
Increase.
because they should be getting the 2%, 2.01% they came out to for next year for all teachers, somewhere around there.
We have to check, that figure could have been higher than it was supposed to be. That's why we have a surplus in that salaries, you know what I mean?
Which one? Page 10.
Let's say that it was supposed to be 74,684.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was budgeted 76,000,
Okay.
and the real salary next year is 76,000. I have to look at.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
I have to see what.
So Nikki,
Yep.
what, did you hear what Ed said?
I did not.
Okay, so what he said was, it might have been budgeted at, let's say it was budgeted at $100, but the cost was only $80. Right? Then it would be actually a decrease, or, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so,
This
yeah,
is the budget amount, it's not the actual.
right,
Correct,
It's what was budgeted,
yeah,
correct,
and it's not the actual.
right.
correct. So the actual could be 74,000
Right, so,
this year.
right. So
I have
a
to
lot of
check.
times we see the amended budget, then the actual,
A
and
different-
then, yeah.
That's why you're gonna
so
see.
that's probably why there's not an increase year over year, because there wasn't enough, didn't spend as much as what was
So
budgeted.
And a lot of
we should
counts
see
like
though
that.
this amended budget come down to the monthly budget, if that's the case. Okay.
Yeah, as you see the actuals, then you're gonna see any savings or any increases.
Yep.
Any overages, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
You know, kind of like when we see the overages and the use of, subs because we have a shortage area and we don't have a person in there and we have to,
But it's gonna show you the.
it's gonna, yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna,
right.
not the
right,
actual.
so you're right.
yeah,
Okay.
or the projected.
So yeah, so I gave you the speech example, right? So there
Yeah.
was, just to clarify, what I saw was the Vogel, Southwest, and Torrington all kind of had that flat year-over-year increase in speech. Social workers was the same. Forbes, Vogel, and Southwest. Psychologist was the same as Vogel. There's just a few, I mean, I can just to double check to make sure if there was supposed to be anything, we built it in.
Did we have any, so you said we're short, are we short an actual length of speech and language pathologist? No.
No,
Are we short in any area?
we do not have any related service vacancies.
Okay,
We have shortages right now because people are,
no, yeah, no, I'm talking about
Right.
like
Nope.
actual staff shortage.
it's my related services, everybody's back.
All the positions.
But we do have in the 5340 account, remember that's over budget because we have some people who, like the nurses, that we had to hire out of, company and so
Right.
forth.
Yeah,
Some
Those were, right, some
BCBA's.
extra, we brought in a couple extra nurses this year because of
So the
COVID.
COVID, yeah.
But
They
they're
will not be
employees,
in.
they're at 5340
right.
contract. Same thing with BCBA's.
Yes, well, yes,
And they were in the budget. The BCBA's were in the budget,
Well, no, they were contracted out.
even 2021.
In the
Yes.
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 We have one of our own, but then we also contract.
But what did we budget for in 21?
The BCBA is in the allowance, so it was grant
Okay.
funded. It was not in the
Okay.
general.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this number,
Go ahead.
so just for that, for the 5340, because that's another one I was curious on,
What page are you on?
Right,
It's okay.
sorry. Page 1 of 2, right after the budget details tab.
Yep.
So the 2021-2022 budget proposal summary. So this was, and this is the one I got a little confused on because of how we talk about it in the monthly meeting. Because I know, and I think this is what you were kind of just saying now, is where we're over budget, but part of that is going towards COVID expenses.
Not the 5340, no.
Okay,
COVID expenses all in supplies, substitutes, and the cleaners, the
Sanitizers?
sanitizers.
okay, so could
But
that,
5340, I gave you the long sheet. Remember,
Yeah.
I gave you those 5 accounts,
right,
and you saw that 5340 is going to be overspent in special ed because of those items that I mentioned.
is that, in that long sheet that you give us?
Yeah.
Is that 5340 the same as this 5340?
It's the 5340 in the special ed.
There's a 5340 in every department,
Oh.
Yeah.
and so 5340 will show up in special ed as
Right.
well.
Okay, so what you're showing us is only non-special ed? And this includes both, just because the numbers were drastically different, that's why I was asking. Like, when we look at it on a monthly basis, it was like 725,000.
Correct. That was the total for all the 5340s. And then I gave you a breakdown in the special ed
Mhm.
line item with those 5 items.
Okay, so then this 1.3 is inclusive of the special ed plus the other number?
Which one you looking at then?
She's looking at other professionals, right here. The
But-
1.341.
Other professional services.
You really
Yeah.
can't compare to the amended budget.
So she's
Yeah.
trying to.
'Cause that's not the
figure out
actual
this
spending.
amount.
Right,
We
well,
haven't
even so,
spent that.
No.
the budget was
Right. So she's
like
getting
420,000.
confused
Just
between
what,
the
what I was
monthly
trying to
and
do is make sense of
what's
what we
here.
review in the monthly meeting, like compared to this, and I just.
But review the monthly actual spending.
Yeah, these are just
It's not
as of a
budget.
certain date.
Right,
Right.
Right. Mine gives you the projected for the whole year.
yours is much lower.
Excuse me?
Yours was much lower for that 5340. That's why I didn't know if there was.
Well, no, if you look at the 5340 on the first sheet, the budget analysis, it's over by
Yeah.
$400,000, right? Because that's all of the 5340s in every account. But it's mostly the short one. The long one is the special ed one that I've given you.
Okay.
This says only as of a certain date. These are not projections.
Where, what?
Any
okay,
of
this
those
one.
that says
Gotcha.
amend as
Yes.
of that certain date.
Right.
Well, it's kind of everywhere. So
Oh, I see.
38 has it.
New World doesn't give you projections on it. That's why I have to do it myself.
Right, right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so the monthly's not gonna tie out to this.
No, but I guess
Okay.
it was more of just his projected
Yeah.
was full year,
Correct.
which was just different than what I was seeing here. So I just wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I was just wondering what was in here, but it sounds like
Because-
it's sped plus
yeah.
regular.
Yeah, because this doesn't do a projected.
Yeah.
It comes from
Right.
Ed.
Okay.
And he breaks it down for us so that, based on, what we've used in the past, right, Ed? And also maybe some funding that might come in when he makes his projections.
Got it. Okay.
So you have to go through and find all the 53.
Oh, gotcha.
And
Yeah.
add them together.
Gotcha.
This is just. the
That's why
special ed
it's
one.
that 1 point whatever, 3 million.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So when I give you the monthly totals, 5340 includes all of the 5340s.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just similar to this. top sheet.
Just like if you went through the electricity, there's, 7 different accounts on electricity. I give you the total. Same thing with salaries, the 35 million.
Anything else, Vicki?
I did have 2 more.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm trying to learn the budget, so.
might as well.
Spend a little time on it. In special education, page 37 of 56, there's no admin salary.
Correct. That's
I
all.
don't get paid, I just.
I was
Yeah, that's,
Volunteer.
if you look at we move those because we have that new world thing, it's all moved into the district wide. If you look at district wide, it shows you that it's
Yeah,
over.
I did see that.
So it's in site 12.
Got it, okay. See, I'm looking out for you.
So nice of you to volunteer.
Thanks, Nick.
for-
Just got my back over there.
Hey, and Nikki, you want that one more?
I did, and then.
Yeah, go ahead.
The high school sped. Teachers.
Is it in the high school or is it in the sped?
I think it's in high school. Yeah. Okay, so page 15 of 56. Third one from the bottom.
Teachers?
And I think this was a little bit of what I was maybe not understanding last time, but we're showing it down 21%, but we have one new hire.
Mhm.
Which one is that? What,
That's
It's
right.
over.
It's right here, 50,
Right.
page 15 of 56.
what account?
Right
Oh,
here.
51, 11.15.
Yeah,
It's here.
Yeah.
Okay, so, right, so you got special ed
15,
15.
okay.
Right, and sometimes with the SPED, they'll be in and out of IDA, so different people will be in and out of the grants. That might have been the case. We'd actually have to tie it out and just look.
I think
Because
Kim might
there's
have an
not a-
answer. She's got
Oh.
her hand up.
Kim's got it. Oops, she's
We
muted.
have retirement that might be accounting for the decrease.
That's the other thing I was thinking,
Okay.
because then we'll hire, the object is.
Because we would budget for what we think we might anticipate backfilling that position for.
And is there a number you normally use?
We do level 2, step 5 is what we assume when we budget for that. And so if the teacher was on level 4, step 13, and then we budget for level 2, step 5, that's a significant decrease in the budget.
Okay.
And that is the scenario at the high school.
So yeah,
and it was the same for the middle school, just because those two had 2 additional hires. You just didn't see it visibly in
Yeah.
the budget.
and there's a retirement in the middle school too, right? Special ed?
Yes.
Yes,
The
right?
middle school one makes more sense because it's roughly like flat, where
Yeah.
this
Yep.
one being down 21% with still one more position, just. spread out.
Yes.
That's where most of the retirements are, right? In the high school?
And that's a teacher position?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened earlier on. That's why we're not
Right.
remembering
Yep,
at the middle school.
Anything else?
right, in the middle. She was at
You
max
sure?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
all right.
I'll give everyone off the chance.
Okay, all right. Ed, do you have anything?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay. Sue, I don't want to ignore anybody that's zooming up there, okay? All right. Anybody else in person here? Nothing? Everybody's good? Fiona?
I just think it might be a good idea for us to just talk a little bit about, we're getting these other funding sources that are specific to certain things that we're spending them on. And I've got some concerns, just in general that, people are gonna think that these things are gonna pay for things out of our operating budget.
I know. Yeah.
Think that we have so many gaps to fill because we've put what I'm gonna call necessary positions already into grants
Mhm.
that, I'm not talking about IDA, I'm talking about all these other
Yeah.
grants that are going to go away or they're one-time grants.
Mhm.
And, it's somewhere the pavement's gonna meet the dirt where we're gonna have
Yeah.
to figure all this out. So
Right.
I would be very, very, very concerned about paying for things we need out of these grants going forward or making it appear
agree.
that we don't you know, we shouldn't be looking at a budget because we're getting these other funding sources, because I think they're two very different things.
Yes. I agree.
And just kind of would like
Yeah.
to see where we all kind of
Yeah.
feel about that, because, you know, yes, we're going in for an increase. Yes, the increase is, you know, pretty much the agreed upon increase to the teacher's salary, 2%.
Yeah.
And, you know, so if we get 0, just say this year, because we're already getting this other funding, then we're really in the hole, right?
Right.
So then when next year comes,
Mhm.
what
How
happens,
can we
right?
sustain?
Yeah.
And you can't ever recover that. And I think that that's how the schools got in the situation they were, because
Yeah.
you could never recover.
Yeah.
So we just kept cutting and cutting and
Right.
cutting.
Yeah.
So I'm worried that people are gonna have the perception of these windfalls of money that are helping us to address some things that we can't afford to pay for. But we have to be able to meet our basic needs. And, you know, we already have too many positions and grants that I would consider
Necessary.
food and housing of the school system
Yeah.
when you're looking at their basic needs.
Right.
But I just think it's kind of, because I think, I mean, I've already started to get questions from people about why you guys even asking for an increase when you're getting all this other money. So I think it's important for us to just kind of see where everyone stands, so that we
Yeah.
are kind of delivering whatever message we all agree to deliver, but
Yeah.
but I think that's gonna get stickier as this moves forward.
Yeah.
You know, with some other possibilities of funding for different items, so. I
Yeah.
guess I'm just curious as to what everyone else feels
Yeah.
about that.
Well, personally, I look at the general budget as, this is our long-term budget. So we need to have this, at least this right now, for long-term. And I look at all those other ones to fill in the gaps, like you said earlier, to improve some things within the school systems and address gaps in maybe certain groups, underserviced groups. And then once that is achieved, then we should be able to reduce those positions, maybe keep some in general budget, but reduce them once we have the achievement gap shrunk. That's my personal take on it. So, but we definitely need this, because this is gonna be our structure going long term.
And I guess I just worry that we'll get in a position, and, you know, anyone that's listened on the board, the summer pay differential has constantly been an item of topic, because they changed that one year to save money in the budget, but we've never been able to go back because we don't have that $1 million to put everybody back on that schedule. So there's lasting implications to making short-term budget decisions. And I think that sometimes not everyone understands the long-term complications of doing that. And I would just really hate, we've progressed so much in a couple of years, and we still have a lot of work to do, but we've made substantial strides. So if we want to keep going, we can't sacrifice regular items that we need, like an English teacher, right? Or
Yeah.
a Spanish teacher,
Yeah.
or teachers that we need, by moving them into these funding sources that are going to go away.
Correct,
And
I
then what are we
agree.
going to do?
I agree wholeheartedly. You know, and I think people also are not thinking, they're thinking of this, well, it's an increase, but actually it was, in my belief, it was underfunded for so many years that actually we're just trying to get back to where we should have been at this point. That's the way I look at it. You know what I mean? So, and I don't know that people always like are looking at it that way, but that's the way you gotta look at it. All these cuts. Well, you're now taking away from what you should have had all those years. And to rebuild it, it costs money. And because you're doing it in a shorter term of time, it looks like a lot of money all at once, but it should have been spent a little at a time over the years, right? That's the way I look at it. That you gutted a lot of areas
Right, so if I
Yeah, go
can,
ahead.
just in terms of the staffing, that's definitely true. We kept trying to be as lean as possible, but now with those new graduation requirements, we can't
Yeah.
do it anymore. We can't kick the can down the road. We have to have those teachers so that we can offer those courses. And the same thing, and this has been said numerous times at this table, about capital. We certainly
Mhm.
need to address capital and address our buildings. We have significant needs there. I know Ed and John are working on that constantly, but they've really identified some very specific needs. And before Ally got here, every year when we came to budget time, the technology got cut. No matter how many times I presented a 5-year cycle, there was nothing at the end of the day. And so it's been very, very difficult. And to have Ally and her team, Ally, who is so visionary, it would be great to have what we truly need in that area as well.
Mhm.
Our kids' futures depend on it.
Yeah, and I'm even, not even talking since you've been here, so I'm even talking going way past even before you even were in the district. I think it's gotten gutted,
Yeah,
for so
sure.
long that people are believing that we should have been at that number, 15 years ago, which we should have been in a higher number.
Mhm.
So the number we're at now looks astronomically high,
Mhm.
but it's not really, if you look over time, what it should have been, it's really not that much of an increase. And that's the way I look at it, So, go ahead, Nikki.
I just, on the CARES Act funding,
Mhm.
I have an older copy, so my numbers
Yep.
might not be correct, but to kind of Fiona's point, and
Mhm.
Fiona, you made this point in the last week's meeting,
Yep.
the few that on here that stuck out to me as the teachers, like the Spanish, the music,
Mhm.
and the media specialists,
Mhm.
those feel like they should be in general budget
Mhm.
and not in the CARES, kind of going on the premise of,
Right,
you of what you're
Yeah.
saying.
right.
Those stuck out to me as should probably move back to general.
Because eventually you're gonna fill the gap. I mean, I even look at the 4 IT techs, right?
Yeah.
We're a one-on-one
Here's
district
a
now,
copy
so
for
that's not
people.
gonna go away that
Okay,
need
so
because
we'll look
COVID,
at-
because
Thank you.
Right.
we've got
another copy.
literally 80% more
Yeah.
computers
Yeah.
than we ever did, so.
Oh,
You
it's
have that one?
3/8.
That's, I
Oh,
think
that's
that's the scribble
3/8.
one.
So if we just look at those 4 items, we're gonna have to come up with $500,000.
So you're
Three,
talking,
three, yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed the last one
So
there.
she's talking about
grade
Spanish,
6,
music,
8, music,
and
grade 4,
library
5,
media.
Media specialist, grade 4, 5, and 4 IT techs.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think people think the IT supports are because of COVID,
No.
but we're gonna keep all these computers
Right.
after
Right, and
COVID.
then what are you gonna
Everyone's
do?
gonna need to
Yeah.
have support.
Right, no,
Exactly.
education has changed forever.
Right.
Yes.
It's never going back,
Right.
Yeah.
which
And
is a good thing,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
and it has been changing pre-COVID, it's just COVID is accelerated.
Yes.
Did you need anything?
That's
just want you to
right,
repeat
Miss
what you s-
Harold? Our
the-
techs
the four
expert over there,
things?
Yes.
Spanish.
correct?
Spanish,
Music.
music, LMS, and IT.
Um,
very different world.
Right.
LMS.
And
Library
it's
media,
been like
yeah.
that for a while, but I think COVID accelerated
It's
it.
yellow.
Media
Especially for
specialist.
us. We essentially went
Media
one to
specialist,
one.
grade 4,
I don't
5.
want to say overnight.
Yes.
And
but
right under
very
it.
We
quickly.
did go
IT.
overnight, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
From talking about having one technology class
right?
in the budget for the elementary kids to now every kid having it.
yeah, right.
Somebody asked my daughter what a mouse was, and she was like, "Well, which one? Like, do you mean the
Ah!
one?"
I love it.
Or like the
Wow,
animal, and the teacher,
progress.
the teacher was like, "Huh,
Amazing.
it's funny."
True. Ellen, I'm
That's
sorry,
great.
did you have your hand?
No, I just wanted to repeat which 4,
Oh, okay.
but then
Okay.
Sue
Very
told me,
good.
so I'm all
Yeah, no,
set, thank you.
I agree with all that. Anything necessary should be in our general budget because that's where we need it to be. That's what we need the school to run. I do agree with that.
And this is not at all on,
No,
they're
no,
looking for
no,
ways to pay
no.
for this stuff. I just,
Right.
I'm worried. I mean, if you look at what we've gotten over even a 10-year block, right? We've never gotten enough to even meet our contractual increases. So
Right.
I'm not sure how we're gonna absorb this and. I'm
Yeah, I
concerned
think there
about
needs to
that.
be a plan to say, okay, these are the positions that are going to go into general budget. So if we have to use some for grants, like in the short run, but there needs to be a plan to get them into general budget.
The problem is, as always happens, our plan will be, what else are you gonna cut to get those into there? And that's, I mean, Not that I'm trying to jump up our budget, I'm just saying, are we comfortable paying for classroom teachers out of basically a 2-year grant, 3-year grant?
We're gonna have this battle then next year,
Right,
right?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
we're not gonna
right,
hire
right,
these
sure.
teachers,
Yep.
do the
Right.
whole, and then, yeah.
right. And then what do you do with them? And then, you know, so I'm thinking, I'm not a teacher, but if I was, I'd be much more concerned to take a position that's funded out of a grant than I would
Mhm.
a position that's a general fund position. So, I mean, I just think it's something that we need to think about.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, I agree.
And when do we have to, I guess is the ESSER money, and I'm sorry that I'm talking about grants at the same time as budget, but I think it's just different this year because there's so many moving parts, but when would we have to finalize for sure the ESSER?
I think we have 2 more weeks.
Okay,
It's-
so we
it's-
wouldn't be able to, for the allotment, so they have to approve specific line items?
Yeah, they have to approve the whole thing. So they are really looking, what do you have in the buckets that are at the bottom, like
Yeah.
academic supports, family community connections, school safety and social emotional well-being, and technology and the digital divide. How are you addressing those
Yeah.
things? And so we have to write a SMART goal for each one of those, and then we have to show data points as to why we are choosing these things. And then we're used to it. I mean, it's not that extensive of a grant. Could be
Yeah,
worse.
no, I just was wondering, like, would we be better serviced to ask for the positions we need, especially relative to the increased graduation requirement, which would free up some money in the ESSER for intervention positions.
So I'm not sure
sort of
what you're
curveball.
saying. What you're saying, shift that some of the ESSER positions to general budget, those 4 that we talked about?
If they're long-term positions, right, like Spanish grades 6 to 8,
Mhm.
I don't see that going away in 2023.
No, I had said that if
Right.
that's successful, I would be back knocking on your door saying next year we would need to, it would be in my general budget proposal.
Yeah. I
Sure.
think, Sue, when you said that,
Mhm.
I was understanding that you're kind of running it as a pilot,
Mhm.
right? So maybe the grant money would be appropriate for a pilot to see how it is and then, you know, I don't know, I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, we're really trying to expand those unified arts, and we're really trying to expand the courses in 2 ways. One, so that more students can take those high school
Mhm.
classes so that they're prepared for language. And also, we do have a Spanish for Spanish speakers at the high school. It'd be great to have one at the middle school so that they are truly ready and they can follow that track in the high school. Because even though you speak Spanish, you may not know how to write it or
Right.
read it. And so it really enhances those skills and makes you very marketable when you go out
Yeah,
into the
because,
world.
yeah, my thinking on that is because then if it is successful, then you'll have the data to show it. So when presented in our general budget, we can support why we need it.
Mhm.
I don't know, that, right,
You can-
Fiona, that's the way I think about things sometimes. Like especially if we're trying something and if it works and the data shows it, then we have a leg to stand on, that this was highly successful, highly popular, whatever the data is in a positive way, and we can then defend the increase in the general budget.
Yeah, and I agree with that if we had control over what we ended up getting, and I think that's where my
Right.
concern is more
Or the
of, we
rebels.
don't, we can ask for
Yeah.
whatever we want, but at
Right.
the end of the day, here's what you get, you figure out what you're gonna spend it on. And I hate to bring the grand list into this discussion, but the grand list is up substantially, okay? So
Mhm.
there's gonna be a lot of additional revenue coming into the city. And, you know, the city's also getting funding through all of these other sources. So I just don't want to leave us short by putting temporary Band-Aids on things and,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're going to get what they give us,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
would not have any issue justifying why a grade 4 or 5 music teacher should be in our general budget, or a media specialist should be in our general budget, or for IT techs when we went from I think 300 devices to over 5,000 devices, I think is what the count is. I mean, their workload has 90% increased, so.
No,
And I just-
I agree with
If
that.
I could just add, we used to have that music position and we used to have that media specialist
Right.
position. And similar to what you're saying about the IT techs, the media specialists also help in that digital world with, teachers and students and parents and getting, and really helping to prepare our students in that way. Especially in 4-5 before they go off to middle school, so that they are utilizing the technology appropriately.
Mhm.
And the music, we used to have an instrumental teacher. The music teachers, the music department has begged for the last few years to have that reinstated because we do not have instrumental
Yeah.
instruction or lessons at the 4th grade level now.
And, those pathways are so important as we move to the high school. I mean, we have to stand for those early on, and this is definitely one that.
Yeah.
fits
Either,
that,
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And obviously the text, as you've said.
And I do agree with the teachers that are, or the positions that are there for, because of the high school graduation increase in
Mhm.
requirements, those should be in general budget, because those requirements are not going to, they're not gonna drop it. They
For
might
sure.
even increase it in the next 5 years, you never know. So, but right now, that's not going away. So that's gonna be with us long term.
Mhm.
So.
And even, I mean, if you look, the few people that have done over 200 home visits,
Mhm.
like you almost feel like if you're paying for I'm gonna keep referring to food and housing because I think things that are required in the classroom, they're not extras, they're our basic needs. And maybe we could free up some money in this grant to focus more on some severe family home visits and engagement of the kids that are not engaged. And, we had kids before COVID that weren't engaged either.
Right.
But more addressing.
Yeah, and a question on that, actually, that, Fiona, that was maybe come up with a good thought. Can we use some of this money to contract out to outside agencies, maybe to do those home visits?
We can,
Instead of saying that we, because then if the need still arises after the couple of years, then we can put it in the budget to hire someone for that.
Right, the only part, the whole idea behind the home visiting is that we're really reaching out and we're really establishing that relationship. And we're trying to bridge that gap between home and school. So come with me, I'll be there when you get to school and I'll follow up and I'll be that link between your home and your school or your classroom, so that now you know me and hopefully allay some of the fears and the reticence and get students, particularly for younger ones, but even for older students, if they really believe that somebody believes in them, right? It's like resiliency theory, at least one adult is that connection. So I understand what you're saying, but I think that connection is so important.
And I would imagine, I mean, there's some wake-up call when a school district official comes knocking on your door.
Yeah, especially when you're
So
older,
that
yes,
it's you
right.
can ignore.
Yeah, you understand a
Well,
little bit
social workers
better.
do
Yes,
home
they
visits.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
High school
absolutely.
social workers are doing that.
All
In the
of
middle.
them, yeah.
They're doing a ton.
And the
Yeah.
elementary, I think they've all
Exactly.
been doing them.
Yeah.
Well, I met with a parent and she brought to my attention, which I didn't even actually, I just assumed that we had a social service department of the city.
Yeah.
And this parent who, is representative of a segment of our community was saying like, the school is getting inundated because there isn't a social service agency as a part of the government in the city. So what happens is it gets pushed into the schools. So I've been calling around just trying to figure that out because I guess I just assumed we had that. I didn't even realize we didn't have that. So she was saying, so it kind of burdens the school system because now we're focusing on a lot of basic need things.
Yes.
And where are we supposed to refer these people?
Yes, think about the care closet
Yeah.
and the whole,
Right.
that's
Right.
just like a little example.
Yeah, so it kind of like begs the whole
Mhm.
question too, but in the meantime, if we have to support this need, two people is clearly at the high school is not gonna
Right.
support the need, at the middle school and the elementaries, I mean, it's,
Yeah, well, I think that a few years back, the state had kind of made it a mandate that the schools were the contact point to those families that needed help because you're working with the minors and kids have to go to school, and if they don't, we have to track them down. So the schools kind of were given the funds, whether it be enough or not, we're given the funds to do this, to be the point person. There was even some schools have clinics in their in their buildings and stuff like that. Which goes to your point, though, I think that the schools are getting stretched but I think money was
Especially
taken
now.
away from maybe the towns to do that, or the state to go into towns and do that. And it was given to the schools, but it's not necessarily enough. And the schools are now doing everything, making sure that the family has enough food, clothing, that they're housed. I mean, all that stuff. So but that was a big push maybe, I want to say 6 or 8 years ago. by
so I
the
talked to some
state.
woman in town who seemed to think, an elderly woman, who seemed to think that the social service function of the city went away when the Torrington Housing Authority was created, and I don't know if that's true or not, but,
Oh,
I don't know.
They did have a social services years ago. They had
Yeah.
one person.
yeah.
but I guess if you don't, I hate to say it, but if you don't use, you don't
Yeah,
know, it doesn't,
yeah.
it's not there, but,
Or
Yeah.
they
But it
didn't
really-
advertise that they had a social services
Yeah.
department,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But it really limits the social worker's ability to deal with educational related social
Mhm.
issues when they're
Right.
dealing with all of these issues and.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so then it passes on to our guidance because they
Right.
have to assist the social workers. then
And
it
the
passes into the
psychologists.
classroom,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
teachers
That's true.
Yeah. No,
and the administrators, so it's like,
Yeah. I think maybe the idea was to privatize all that with the private agencies. And I think that's what the state was hopefully thinking, the private agencies cut some, be able to reduce some spending using private agencies. But they're not the government, so they're not necessarily going out unless you ask them to go out. So who asked them? The people who know the issues, which
Right.
happens to be the school, because the schools are going out because the kids have to be in school. If they're not in school, or they're not eating, or there's some neglect, then the schools have to get involved.
Right.
See, right? So I think it's a tough situation. Maybe conversation with the city on that would be a great thing to kind of see where the city would, where their responsibility is or should be, for
and
the,
I'm just putting it out because
family.
I didn't know anything of that nature and I was quite
Yeah.
surprised.
yeah, no, it's been going on for at least 6 or 8 years, right, Laura?
Yeah, I think you're right.
About 6 or 8 years, they made this big push for schools. They
Yep.
wanted schools to even have clinics in them and just all this stuff. And it was like a family support type center type of model.
But that comes with staff and.
Yeah, and they,
Right.
yeah, and they,
Not just do it.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
and they did provide money, but it's not necessarily enough.
We
Yeah.
have,
And when you're dealing, it's one thing when you're trying to help the kid, but now if the family needs help,
Right.
now you're short staffed because now it's not 1 or 2 kids, now it's maybe 6 adults or 4 adults or 2 other adults that you're also trying to help out.
Right, because she was also saying like, then we used to refer to Torrington Youth Services, but now there's only 1.5 employees at Torrington Youth Services, so it just seems like
Yeah.
our chain is maybe rusty.
Yeah, because I think their money has been cut.
It has-
Right.
Youth services,
Yes.
so that's the issue,
Right.
they're taking money from here and putting it here, but expecting the same service. So they're saying,
Or
okay, we're
more.
gonna give it to the schools, and they're expecting the same service, but they're not necessarily giving you technically
That's right.
enough to do it.
But we are lucky in our community because Hartford Hospital, Hartford Healthcare, Charlotte Hungerford offers us social work services,
Right.
and we also have them through community health and wellness. So they have been willing, particularly at the secondary, to give us hours and services.
at
at
the high
middle
school, there's one
and the high
person who's
school,
40 hours.
which is great. So
yeah,
it does
from the
help,
hospital.
helps to supplement.
Yeah.
To go in and to be able to provide like those services the kids that wouldn't necessarily be getting social work
Yeah.
at an IEP. They're just kids that maybe their family needs help.
Right.
Maybe they can't get them to counseling because there's no way to get them there. So
Right.
by
Yeah.
having that partnership, that is a nice thing.
Yeah, my biggest fear is always overburdening people to a point where they wouldn't want to work here anymore. Right? When
Right.
It's just,
They just
you're
can't
It's
do their
making
job.
their
Right,
caseload
the needs
just
are
too
huge.
much, and then you miss something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it
But-
is those basic things that, like Sue was saying in terms of care closet, just basic,
Right.
you know, hygiene needs or clothing
Mhm.
or where are there resources for food and shelter and those things.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
just finding the kids where they
Yeah.
are.
Exactly,
Right.
Yeah.
especially our older kids.
Yeah, it's not only our district, believe me, there's a lot of
No,
districts out there
Sure.
that are doing the same thing, and the
I'm sure.
staff is being, you know, pulled to their wits' end because there's just not enough of them to deal with the complexity and the volume of issues that families have.
And I do think that what you had said about the connections, I think that that's a really important
Yeah.
piece, especially with the kids that maybe are a little bit checked out right now.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw my last newsletter, but I included an 8th grade student had written a message to her special ed teacher and her para, just saying, thank you for not giving up on me because I was done. I wasn't doing it. And if you didn't stay on me, I wouldn't have really put in the effort. And now I see my grades going up a real lot. And it was just such a nice thing to, you know, see that they kept pushing and pushing. And, you know, they did get that one back. But there's just, it's really hard right now, especially, I think.
When we heard that yesterday in the presentation by the high school, just how
Mm.
important engagement is right
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
and that connection, that I think that's a great idea that,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
find ways to fund that even more.
Mhm.
So we can make those new initiatives successful and.
Mhm. Yeah.
So do you think that the,
Hold on, Fiona, I just want to ask Ed and Sue, just make sure that they don't. Ed, Sue, do you have any questions or comments? Sue's all set. Ed?
No, you know, I think the discussion about social services and special funds and all of that is well warranted. But, you know, I get it. Lots of cities around the country use special funds and juggle special funds and shift positions around in order to ultimately get the necessary services. And so I agree with Fiona that, you know, ideally we shouldn't have to be doing that, and it can cause problems down the line. I understand how and why it happens, and ultimately, if the choice is to get something in a special fund or not get it at all, you know, I would definitely still support putting things in special funds just to at least get something we want for the short term and figure it out down the line. Obviously, it's not preferable, but I understand why it happens.
Very good. Okay, Fiona.
just that, I mean, do we feel like we have enough supports, you know, for the, I don't want to call it the COVID aftermath, but in that social work area? And because I imagine once we get back to whatever the new normal is,
Sure.
parents are still going to be allowed to have their kids distance learn and not report into the building. And so I don't think that issue is going to go away.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like they're going to lighten up on that of making parents send their kids back to school. So
Are you hearing,
Right.
sorry, are you hearing that through like your,
just
Parent
when the
discussions.
governor's been talking, I mean, it looks like they're gonna, because now they're saying that only 55% of Connecticut residents are gonna get vaccinated, which is not gonna allow you to get herd immunity, and they were doing this big thing today, so. So with all that.
Yeah, we keep asking every single week in terms of the powers that be, or our connection with the governor's office. And we're not really getting clear answers, which leads me to believe that we probably will start the year with some remote option. We are asking that we not have that. We would really like to be able to come back in person, get back to as normal as possible, and We understand if we have to wear masks or if we have to be more socially distanced, that's totally understandable, but just to have that remote option is such a burden on our teachers and to be teaching within students in your class and then remote. It's very difficult, and it's also very difficult to assign a teacher just distance or just in person, because you have to have a lot of staff and in order to do that.
Yeah.
So it becomes very, very problematic.
We've also had some kids that have been in and then out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's very difficult too, because, originally it was, okay, well, they're just going to do the remote students. Okay, but now suddenly they're in school again. Oh, wait, no, now they're back out. So it was just, that's kind of been a juggling act too.
Yeah. It would be nice if there was narrowed parameters for distance learning versus in-person learning. Like only certain kids can be out for certain reasons rather than, just because, because that would help. Because if we had if that was narrowed, then we might be able to do just distance teachers and then in-person teachers, possibly. If that was
It
narrowed.
wasn't daily
If it couldn't
decision.
just.
And right, and
yeah,
not
where
a
you're going
day by
back
day
and forth and
situation.
back and forth.
Yeah, you
Right.
can't do that.
That's,
So.
yeah, that's just impossible, especially if you set up, these are distance teachers, these are in-person teachers.
Right.
How do you make that work?
So, yes.
So Fiona, are you suggesting that these 4 positions be put back in the budget
I'm suggesting
and then
that
use that dollar amount for interventionists? Or
I'm
social
just
workers or
suggesting
what
that I
have
think we
you?
should think about the long-term implications of it, and we may decide that this isn't the year to bring it, but understand that, to me, that's what we're gonna have to come up with,
Right, well, it's 267, 714.
plus the other ones.
Yeah, 751,
That
230.
it's just those 4 is 267, 714.
But one of them's 424.
The
IT.
IT.
The
Oh,
IT, for
sorry.
IT
Yeah, it's
techs.
751.
think you look at the
Okay.
top one.
No, it's a lot.
But that's for 2 years? Is that why it's yellow in front of it there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah.
put it
one
back in
year
for
would be
next
the
year, then 1 year
212,
would be
right?
212.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, I'm, just wanted you guys'
And then the
opinion on
88
it
for
too,
the
because I
meeting.
really just don't want to see us left holding this next year to figure it out. And I think that the longer this goes on, everyone's getting more and more burned out, right? And it's just
Yeah.
getting
And-
harder to juggle.
Yeah, and it's just, you become less effective, and that's not what we want. I mean, I would say definitely like the THS positions, especially with the credit increases, those should be permanent positions. That's my thought, just because that's a permanent thing. That's not going away.
So those are in general
Those are
budget,
in
the
general
THS
already.
ones,
Yeah.
the English teacher, the social studies, the science.
But on
the-
here, I see one humanities, one math.
Those are coaches.
Oh, those are just coaches.
Those are,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And that would be a 1 year to really just try and deal with pandemic and differentiation, and learning gaps and things that we've never had to deal with before.
So is the salary amount for the Spanish teacher, is that because that's an area of need?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, and it's
Okay.
very, very hard to find someone, so we're
Okay.
thinking if they
Shortage.
are coming, right.
okay,
Sure.
That's,
Any
yeah.
of the world languages, as you know.
right, right,
Yeah,
okay. I just
absolutely.
wondered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a double.
Okay.
We wish, right?
Okay.
And I do have information on ESL or EL learners.
Yeah.
If you want me to share that at this point, I know it was asked for at our last meeting, so I just brought that information. Because in terms of these next 2 years, we do see severe learning gaps there. I don't know if you want to just bring that up, Ally.
I think the chart showed that last night too.
Mhm.
And then I'll just get this to everyone. So just a refresher, I know that many of you already know this, but districts have to provide a bilingual program or a bilingual teacher at a site where 20 or more students speak one dominant language, and our dominant language is Spanish. So we have a bilingual Spanish teacher at every site. At Forbes and Southwest, they are sharing one this year. So in the bilingual education program, you're in there, the students are there for 30 months or until they meet the exit criteria. And the next slide will actually show you the exit criteria. They have to go through Lost Links, and I'll make sure that you get that so that you can kind of see where the breakdown is. Students are tested in a variety of different areas. So it's reading, speaking, listening, and writing. And so they have to score a level 4 or 5 on this test. It's very, very difficult, as you might imagine, and it takes usually longer than the 30 months. So we'll go back to my first slide. And so when you look at it, a lot of our students, if you look at that last bullet, not meeting the exit criteria at the end of the 30 months, do receive TESOL, ESL, sheltered instruction, whatever you want to call it, but we call them our EL teachers, but it is support for their language. So usually that is a push-in model where it's almost like a co-teaching. If you think of Laura's, special ed situation, where the teacher goes in and offers that extra support. Some of our schools, and you'll see in a minute, have paras, and they're going into the classes, and some at the higher levels, we have tutors, because in secondary, it's so important to have tutors who really know that subject area and can translate for the student and make meaning. Many of the challenges in high school, we have newcomers coming in and they're not speaking the language, and we have that pressure of making sure that they graduate. And bullet number 3 is the enrolling student coming in high school has to make sure that we provide intensive services for those students so they can read, write, and comprehend English by the time they are graduating. The standards are tough. We're not lowering the expectations. And so it's very, very important that those students get that extra support. And I do feel we could go to the staffing, Allie, particularly at the middle school and the high school, and you can see the data that supports this, that we do need extra supports in those areas. At the high school, we used to have 2 to 3 bilingual tutors. Unfortunately, over the years, 2 of our tutors have retired and they've gone on. So we have 1 tutor now. This person happens to be, his area is math and science, and he really is able to be very, very strong there and support our students in that. But we really want to make sure that we have someone in terms of our supports, in particular, because you see the emphasis on the reading and the writing and the speaking and all those other pieces that are so important. So I am saying or proposing that, and we obviously can pay for this out of some grant funds, should we move things around, or with the new funds that we will be getting if President Biden signs the American Rescue Act tomorrow. So we will have some funds for those positions. So hiring 2 tutors or paras, it helps at that level to, as I said before, have the tutors, a lot more is required, definitely a higher level of rigor in terms of the academics at the secondary level. And then right now, as I mentioned before, Forbes and Southwest are running pretty much at similar enrollments, which was not the case in the past. So to really hire an EL or TESOL teacher for Southwest to support them as well. Right now, the EL teacher is housed at Forbes. So if we look at the data at the bottom, you can see the comparison between the non-EL, which is the blue, and the EL students in the area of reading. So, and that was just January of 2021. So it's very, very significant in terms of the gaps. They've had a very, very hard time. Parents may also have had a challenge during this time where they may have had difficulty in terms of the language barrier. So, or even the technology barrier. I know that we've really been working with families. I know Ally and her team has worked very hard on this. I know that our translators at both the middle school and the high school have worked very hard on this. You see those gaps there, but really our translators at all of our schools have stepped up and tried to provide help and support and outreach. But these are extraordinary times. So if we're really talking over the course of the next year or two, when these grants are available, I really think that even if we weren't to add these to general budget, I think this is definitely a need.
And we've consistently run these size numbers, I think, for several years, right? Like, we haven't seen a huge jump.
No.
In ELL numbers,
Yeah.
we've gone, over the last 10 years, we've gone from 7% to 11%. So it's not huge, but it is 11% of our population. So if you compare it now to like SPED, now Laura's got her numbers down to 14, 15%. So
But it ends up costing us more if we can't provide enough
Right.
correct.
service. And it doesn't help the kids, right?
Right, because the goal is for them to graduate
Right.
and not drop out and to have their credits and to earn them and to get them to really understand and be able to be functional in their world.
And if often, well, not often, but at times what will happen as well is students will end up getting referred for special ed.
Yeah.
And it's not that they have a disability, it's that they're
Right.
not proficient in the language. We have to be very careful that we're not looking to identify a child who's not English dominant as having a disability because they don't understand the English language.
Yeah.
So that happens at times as well.
Ellen?
I had a question. Can you put that back up, the one that has like the number of teachers, pairs? Looking at Torrington School,
Mhm.
let me get it up. Thank you, Ally. It shows 80 enrollment, right?
Yes.
EL kids, yep.
0.6 teacher.
We would love for her to come
Plus one
full-time,
ELL
but she
teacher.
does.
That's
it's
one
a
ELL,
point
but
six
still,
bilingual. Yes,
One
we would
bilingual
love
teacher
to supplement
and one
so that we could have a
ELL.
1.0, absolutely. So
There's a
that would
1.0
be,
EL.
and then
Right.
there's a 0.6.
0.6 bilingual.
Yeah.
But still,
And-
but look at Vogel Wetmore,
Correct.
Yes.
has
With two-
more.
Two less. Yep.
They-
We totally agree.
Wow.
That would be lovely if we could
How can
do that.
they do their jobs?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Well, it's like when we don't provide intervention, it's
Right.
just making the process
Right.
longer to get the
Right,
kids up to where they
right.
need to be.
especially at
Wow.
those foundational levels.
Is the 0.6 position at Torrington just the 0.6 because we don't have somebody that wants to work full-time, or it's just the 0.6 position?
It's the former, but we did
Okay.
not budget beyond the 0.6.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so,
Wow.
So you're correct.
got it. Okay. So,
And I'm sure also teachers being teachers, they do more anyway.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So
She's phenomenal.
that's just, to me, is staggering.
Yeah, but we would love to add the
All of them.
0.4,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Well, the numbers
And it is
certainly-
needed.
Right.
Yep,
The numbers justify it.
yeah,
I think
so
our
like the
community-
issue in that situation is, do you add a 0.4 position to equal out the 1? And maybe the person might take the 0.4, or do you try to hire a 0.4 to add the 1? I mean, so
yeah,
yeah,
it's,
what do you do?
it's tough.
What do you do?
Yep.
It's a balancing act,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to lose someone either,
Right.
because if you post it as a 0.1 or 1.0, and then nobody wants to, that person, let's say, doesn't want to take it, and you hire someone else, they lose their job, or bump someone else or whatever, or they can't because they're 0.6. So.
So what about another tutor at Torrington that can push in service into the rooms?
Yeah, that's an option. right?
Mhm. So we did have two before, but these people, darn it, they keep retiring. So what's up with that? And so then it's hard to backfill. Yes, that would be great to have another, and to get a 1.0 tutor would help, or even another 0.4
Right.
tutor.
Right.
Would help.
Yeah. Are there any open positions in those areas, in any of the areas?
I think I'm going to defer to Kim, because I
That's-
know
yes.
that she's posted a couple of different things, and it's been tough to get people.
Yeah, the teachers are all filled. The paraprofessionals and the tutors, we are struggling to fill those positions, and even the translators. We've had some resignations. The tutors, some of the tutor positions have been vacant since the beginning of the year. We've posted them and cast the net out to all avenues that I can think of, and tried to use our community. We've had Donna really trying to reach out to all of our community partners to share the information, and we just, the applicant pool is very shallow.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about any of the early retirement people?
Nobody that's in TESOL or bilingual.
Okay. Teacher pool for that?
Is there a pool to draw from for teachers or no?
Kim, did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that question. I'm sorry.
Is there a teacher pool to draw from for those types of positions?
You mean like from the state? Is that what you're talking about?
No, just because you said there's not a lot of applicants for tutors and paras, but is there applicants if you had?
No, there's no, I mean, we've outreached. So one of the avenues to be able to find tutors is to look through so we didn't have any postings for teachers, but we're able to use the EdSite system to be able to outreach to anybody in the state of Connecticut who currently holds a particular endorsement. And I think over the summer, I don't know, so you might remember, I think I sent out 2,000 emails to teachers who had held specific certifications for, positions that we were looking for.
Mhm.
Anybody who currently holds in a specific endorsement and is not currently working in a school in Connecticut, I have the ability to be able, through the Freedom of Information Act, I have the ability to get that information.
Nikki,
Is this where we could like share services with other schools?
you mean districts?
Yeah,
Yeah,
other
districts.
districts in that, in the region, or, I was thinking like, could this be remote? But it sounds like that maybe isn't the best, but, that kind of widens the
Yeah.
candidate pool or the resources.
I think that can work in some areas. The difficulty is that Torrington's very different than their surrounding districts. And so they may not have the same needs that we do. I can certainly do an outreach there
But
to
even,
see.
but even like if you're saying, Nikki, it's remote, it doesn't have to be Torrington.
Right, yeah.
It could be anywhere in the state. If there's a way to share even remote services, if we can't find anybody.
Yeah, because I mean, just hearing what you're saying about that kind of starting to shake a little bit, looking at this and how many positions
Yeah.
are here
Right.
and the needs, and
Mhm.
we're not going to be the only ones in this position, and
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Kim's doing a lot of shaking lately too.
Yeah.
In 8 years, when we're generating our own staff
Well, that's
out of
the
our
thing.
pathways, we'll be.
There
in
you
a
go.
better shape.
And that's the
Hello.
goal. Right, exactly. That's the goal.
That'll be nice.
Even reaching out to some recent grads and trying to convince them to
Yeah.
become teachers, tutors,
Mhm.
et cetera.
Exactly.
Might
Are
be
you
a-
gonna
might
send
be
us
a
Yes, I will. I
possibility,
promise.
like an early recruitment.
No, I know you will.
Kim's been doing that as
Yeah.
well. She's been reaching out to the colleges.
Yeah.
I know to
can
look for
probably
special
send it
ed,
now.
future grads.
Can you send
But
that?
She's doing everything.
Yeah, we don't even have these in the budget though, and
It's
that's,
not ready.
if we really want to work on the achievement gap and our alliance status,
Can you
we have
send
to
that to
start
the board
addressing these
members?
things.
Right.
Oh, you did already? Thank you.
So
Send it to
good.
Marissa, she sent it.
Good.
Thank you.
ELL treated, I know I saw it within the budget lines, but is it kind of treated within? Like special education is completely separate. Is ELL
get it.
completely
Oh, like a separate account
kind of
number?
like,
Yes.
but
Separate
also
account.
like managed totally different? Like, would we have an action plan developed for, I know this is just STAR assessment, but I would imagine some of the other metrics fall in line. Would we develop something like that to kind of target ELL, kind of like how we did a little bit with SPED with, bringing you on and saw the results?
You want to talk about just the development?
Sure, so the answer is yes. However, EL is not its own department,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
there's not a director, there's not someone who oversees it. It does fall under the Office of Teaching and Learning right now. So I'm what's called the ELAC, so I'm the liaison between the State Department and the district to oversee the loss testing and that kind of thing right now, and professional development for the EL teachers and the bilingual teachers. 3 years ago, so beginning 3 years ago, so it would have been 17, 18, and 18, 19, those 2 consecutive years, we arranged for some really intensive professional learning for all of our teachers in this department. They worked with 2 experts in the field who have done work all over the East Coast, and really some good work. And they worked really, really intensely with the teachers to help them develop, I don't want to call it a curriculum, but it's kind of like a system of processes so that they could see themselves more as resources to the general ed teachers, because there's so few of them and the need is so great that it's really not effective to be pulling kids out all the time. So it's more of a push-in model. And that's pre-COVID, that's what we were doing. But because of cohorting and such, that's kind of been on pause. So we've been trying to do things a little bit differently, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to that. So it's not the best situation because we really need more. But to answer your question, yes, I mean, there is a plan and there's a focus and we're trying. Yeah.
But I think I wonder if it's one of those things where we need to invest in, that next level to oversee the program. Like, is it that big of a? I mean, those numbers.
You mean like a
aren't great.
coordinator or
Kind
someone?
of, yeah, like over that to really kind of
Yeah,
make
make
some
sure it
gains.
happens.
So years ago, we had that.
Yeah.
And so we had it in the elementary and we had it in the secondary. In fact, Joanne Creedon, when I was at Forbes, was the coordinator at Forbes, but she was also all the elementary, the coordinator for all elementary. And then we had someone at the secondary. And then probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, I had presented a coordinator, just a coordinator for the whole department, but also in particular for the high school, because the high school has such intense needs, as you might imagine, given that they have to be ready for graduation as well, and just the amount of time meeting with families and helping them understand and figuring out the pathway, not career pathway, but just the pathway for this child, or the plan, if you will, for this child who is coming in as a newcomer in 10th grade or 11th grade. So it's very important to have that piece. I'm sure we still have the job description somewhere, and that was something that we really thought would be beneficial, but at the time we had very little funding.
One of the other things that happens at the high school level in particularly is, and it happens frequently, is when children come as newcomers from their native country, they've often, they're designated, oftentimes there's an acronym for it, and it's SIFE. It's student with interrupted formal language in their own country. So they may have not had formal schooling for several years in their native country, and then they show up, as a 16-year-old with no English and really not the background in their own language. Yeah.
And then don't our guidance counselors have to track down their transcripts and stuff from these other countries?
Well, they
and-
try. They try.
That becomes another challenge, and then we have to have it translated.
Yeah, which is when you
So-
look at these numbers, I just,
Yeah.
Right, it's staggering.
Yes.
It's
John?
significant.
Many of those countries lose interest in the kids and teaching their kids once they learn to read and write. So a fifth grade education is about all they'll get in most of Latin America. So if a 14-year-old kid comes here, unless they've been lucky enough to be someplace where they were educated, either through the church or in one of the better places to be, they have this huge gap, which is what you're talking about. But it's institutional, it's built into the system because they just don't care.
So we see the gaps when they come to us, and so we are trying to do the outreach, as you
Yeah.
say, for families, for our students, and develop what you heard last night. Robin and her team spoke about the individual student success plan, so that they're really sitting down with the students' guidance and social workers, or Jen Pirelli, who leads that department, and does a nice job, tries to be the coordinator, but she also has teaching responsibilities as well. She wears many hats, and really making sure that we have that outreach. Because as we were saying before, it's so very important to have those relationships and those connections for the kids to be successful.
I mean, sounds like we can say we want to hire 6 or 8 people, but probably we're going to hire 0 because there's 0 people out there that are going to apply for the job. You know, and
These are the challenges.
I'm okay with saying, let's add some positions that you think are appropriate. And like you said, Fiona, if we don't have them, if we don't have them listed, then we really can't hire them anyways. So, that's not going to hurt. Unfortunately, there's a lot of shortage here. Right.
It sounds like we need like kind of that longer term plan here, but
Mhm.
Can we focus some of the interventionists
Right.
that are here,
So,
focus towards that program? So we're kind of, because this feels like the immediate need, coordinator would be nice, but I don't
Right.
think it's this.
To do an intervention
Yeah, to do an
intensive
intervention
for
intensive
our
for
EL
this, to try and
students.
at least.
Just as an example, Guatemala, and several of our students are from Guatemala. Compulsory through 6th grade or between the ages of 7 and 14, at which point, unless there's a technical school available to them, and that's not all
Makes it
that
very
common
difficult.
anyway. And that's typical of Latin America, which explains a lot of the problem we're dealing with.
yeah, formal education is not prioritized.
No, not in the least.
And that's
Yeah.
why they're coming here.
Yeah, and
Often.
For a better
Yeah.
life
Right,
for a
right.
better life,
and more
better
opportunities.
education,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So I
yes, Fiona.
probably look at things a little bit different, but so I feel like we're responsible for our community. We know who our community is, all of us. And it's up to the Board of Education to lay out what we need, right? And then it's up to the Board of Finance and City Council to decide what they're willing to give us. But I think that if, we don't continue to document these needed areas,
Right.
and it continues to grow, then
Yeah.
it's like, well,
Yeah.
we thought we had enough staff, or we thought you had enough
Yeah.
people to cover this, and we're already deficit, and then we don't even know once we get the real records, because, I still have some concern about all the homes that have been turned over in Torrington. Those kids could be finishing out in their other district, and then are they gonna come into our school district next year? I don't think we know the answer to that, because you're
Sure.
allowed to, with
Mhm.
distance learning, you can stay at your
Yep.
school in New York,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
And
you
then-
can't tell.
Next year, or when we go in person, decide you're gonna come here. And I think, those numbers might continue to rise, and I would just hate us to see us get, for lack of a better word, crushed. If we're not, have the funding for them to actively pursue people to fill these positions, or maybe even look at getting our state reps involved. And if there's such a shortage and everyone's having it, why isn't the state putting together an alternative form to certification for these type of positions if no one can get these positions and there's a high need for it?
Right. And,
I'm not asking anything added tonight, I'm just
no,
wanting
Yes.
people to start
Yeah.
to think
Look at it.
about what
Yeah.
we want to present.
yeah. No, I agree with that. Adding what we need, but also I also look at it too, is if we say that we want to hire, in certain areas, and then, and let's say we get the money without issue, and then we don't, then I don't, then there's also we get the possible backlash that we don't hire. Well, the reason why we didn't hire, and most people might not know this, is because there's no applicants out there. So then, so the expectation is that we're going to increase this program, but we didn't because there's nobody to fill positions. So I think, I look at it that way too. We're saying we're gonna bolster up this program, but there's nobody out there possibly to work it as of we know tonight, right? So, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and I guess I look at it, I'm not gonna say disability because that's the wrong word, but John needs this service, right? And if we're not even out actively pursuing, if we have no money to fill John's need, then I think that's a problem, right? And now John's need becomes a problem that goes on because maybe John needs 3 hours a week, but he gets 20 minutes because we have one person servicing 70 kids. I mean,
Yeah.
so I don't know, that's why I'm just looking at it and,
Yeah.
maybe they have to get involved in the state level as to how do we solve this problem of the shortage, because this is required service. It's not like,
Right.
a class that's not needed or
Right.
elective. It's not
Right,
elective.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we repeatedly say, these kids are in this program so long, and this is why.
Yeah.
And this is part of state statute, so.
Yeah.
And then when we have kids in a classroom that can't even communicate to their teacher that they need to go to the bathroom, I think that's an issue when they're coming, right here and coming right into our schools. So.
Yeah.
And then that just pushes more and more on our teachers in the classrooms, right?
That's part of
But-
the income, like they have to be in the classroom.
But
right?
with one-on-one device, Google Translate,
There's not enough of them.
there is some technological advantages there, where at least they can simple things. So that goes back to my other thing about maybe spending more money on technology because of the multi-uses of technology, if done in the right way, in the right software, the right, right programs, right training, that we can accomplish so much more. And you might not actually need to hire another teacher. Just throwing it out there. And the technology will be there for long term. Once we buy it, we buy it.
It's an
Just a
investment.
thought. Yeah, right. It's
Exactly.
just a thought.
And I think definitely for these next
Mhm.
funds that we get, that's definitely an option.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm okay with adding positions if we need to in the English language area or whatever area. It doesn't have to be that area, any other area. But also we might want to look at some technology in those areas that will help just in case we cannot fill those positions for whatever reason. Are there things out there to help us if we can't get those bodies?
Thinking about it differently, whether
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
remote or the
Yeah.
sharing.
Trying to
service,
solve a
like trying
problem
to-
more than
yeah,
one way, right?
Exactly.
And we're doing that in the
Yeah.
sped world as well. Like I increased my IT budget because of that. There are a lot of tools now that kids can use that enable them to do things that they were not able to do before. Like to have a scribe or to have somebody read to you all the time. We have tools that can do that now. So it's kind of exciting what's out there.
Right. And then that helps the kids become independent readers, because if they find something they enjoy to read, like a series of something, they can do that at home because they're using the software or whatever technology. So. Just some thoughts. Anybody have any questions, Sue or Ed, especially since you guys are not here, it's hard to tell whether you have questions, comments. Sue, you're all set?
Yeah, I agree with, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead, Ed.
Okay, I agree with a lot with what Fiona's been talking about. We've all said this at some point over the last few years, that, you know, it's, I'm going to put it a little differently, but it's not, I don't view it as my job to anticipate the whims of the people who administer the city budget. And so, you know, if we all agree that we want or need something, I'm all in to put it in the budget and, you know, include the justification in our presentation and, you know, let the people who allocate our funds decide what to do. You know, just in the same way that it's not their role to dictate to us how we should build our budget, it's not our role to anticipate how they're going to set the final budget. So I'm very much in favor of adding whatever positions we need, especially for English language learners and those kinds of supports, because you know, that is a substantial section of our school community. And, you know, if we have to spend a bit more money to make sure that kids don't end up left behind, I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else here in person? No. Okay. All right. Do you have a motion to adjourn? Nikki?
Yep.
Ed,
Am I moving or seconding?
second, please. Thank you. All in favor?
Bye.
Till the next meeting.